Good evening. Tonight, our attention turns to London, where Britain's Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has made one of the most significant immigration policy announcements in years. With the eyes of the world upon Westminster, she declared that the United Kingdom will temporarily suspend the refugee family reunion route. This pathway, which has long enabled those fleeing war and persecution to reunite with their loved ones in Britain, is being paused as part of a broader effort to overhaul the nation's asylum system. Alongside this, Cooper confirmed that Britain will begin returning migrants who arrive in small boats across the English Channel to France later this month. The arrangement follows a new treaty signed in August with Paris, marking the first time the UK has been able to directly return such arrivals under a structured legal agreement. According to Cooper, the first detentions of migrants in Dover happened almost immediately after the treaty was finalised. She now expects the first transfers back to France to begin before September ends. The deal, described as a one-in, one-out mechanism, will allow Britain to send back irregular arrivals while considering a small number of reciprocal legal applications subject to strict security checks. Perhaps the most striking and controversial element of Cooper's announcement is the suspension of the dedicated refugee family reunion route. For decades, this provision has served as a vital humanitarian lifeline, ensuring that those recognised as refugees in the UK could bring their spouses, children and dependent family members to safety. But Cooper argued that the system is being manipulated. She warned that criminal gangs have exploited family reunion as a pull factor, encouraging desperate people to risk dangerous journeys across the Channel. As a result, the government will suspend new applications under the scheme immediately. Until a new framework is in place, refugees will be subject to the same family migration rules and conditions that apply to everyone else. The Home Secretary also outlined what comes next. She said that within a forthcoming asylum policy statement expected later this year, the government will propose a new system for family migration. This may include financial contribution requirements, longer waiting periods before refugees can apply to bring relatives, and strictly controlled arrangements for unaccompanied children and for those fleeing persecution with immediate family in the UK. Cooper indicated that the first of these changes could be rolled out as early as the spring. Supporters of the reforms argue that they will strengthen the system, reduce strain on public services and deter people smugglers. But critics warn the measures risk leaving vulnerable people trapped in unsafe conditions abroad and will tear families apart in the process. Another flashpoint Cooper addressed is the use of hotels to house asylum seekers. Across the country, tens of thousands of applicants are living in temporary hotel accommodation, a stopgap measure that has drawn protests and mounting frustration in local communities. Councils and residents alike have voiced strong opposition, describing the policy as unsustainable, expensive and damaging to social cohesion. Cooper acknowledged these grievances and confirmed that the government intends to end the use of asylum hotels altogether. But, she emphasised, closures must be carried out in a controlled and orderly fashion. To that end, the Home Office is reconfiguring asylum sites, increasing room sharing, tightening eligibility tests for accommodation, and identifying alternative, cheaper and more suitable housing in cooperation with other departments and local authorities. She also announced plans to boost security, strengthen standards, and improve coordination between police, providers and the Home Office to ensure rules are enforced. Cooper directly addressed the concerns of local councils and communities, saying she agrees with them. Asylum hotels cannot remain open. She pledged to close them permanently, but repeated that such a transition requires careful management. Her words were aimed at diffusing public anger, as demonstrations outside hotels in towns across the UK have become increasingly frequent and heated. All of this comes amid intense political pressure. Immigration has been one of the most divisive issues in British politics since the Brexit referendum. Successive governments have promised to take back control of the borders, yet small boat crossings have continued to rise, with over 40,000 people making the journey in 2024 alone. For Prime Minister and Cabinet alike, the Franco-British Treaty and the suspension of refugee family reunification are presented as proof that they can deliver on those promises. Yet legal experts caution that Britain risks undermining its obligations under international law, particularly the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights. Civil society groups warn of the human cost: families separated, children stranded, and desperate people forced into the hands of smugglers as safe and legal routes narrow. So what does this mean for the United Kingdom? Will these measures succeed in reducing small boat arrivals, easing pressures on councils, and restoring public trust in the asylum system? Or will they spark new controversies, legal battles, and humanitarian crises? As the first returns to France are scheduled to begin later this month, the consequences will soon become clear. One thing, however, is certain: Britain's asylum debate is entering a new contentious chapter, one that will shape not only its migration policies but also its political landscape for years to come.
We're now taking. In August, I signed the new treaty with France, allowing us for the first time to directly return those who arrive on small boats. The first detentions took place the next day of people immediately on arrival in Dover, and we expect the first returns to begin later this month. Applications have also been opened for the reciprocal legal route, with the first cases under consideration, subject to strict security checks. So in our asylum policy statement later this year, we will set out a new system for family migration, including looking at contribution requirements, longer periods before newly granted refugees can apply, and dedicated controlled arrangements for unaccompanied children and for those fleeing persecution who have family in the UK. And we aim to have some of those changes in place for the spring. But in the meantime, we do need to address the immediate pressures on local authorities and the risks from criminal gangs using family reunion as a pull factor to encourage more people onto dangerous boats. Therefore, we are bringing forward new immigration rules this week to temporarily suspend new applications under the existing dedicated refugee family reunion route. Until the new framework is introduced, refugees will be covered by the same family migration rules and conditions as everyone else. Mr. Speaker, let me turn next to the action we're taking to ensure that every asylum hotel will be. Within the asylum estate, we're reconfiguring sites, increasing room sharing, tightening the test for accommodation, and working at pace to identify alternative, cheaper and more appropriate accommodation with other government departments and with local authorities. And we're increasing standards and security and joint public safety cooperation between the police, accommodation providers and the Home Office to ensure that laws and rules are enforced. Mr. Speaker, I understand and agree with local councils and communities who want the asylum hotels in their communities closed, because we need to close all asylum hotels, and we need to do so for good. But that must be done in a controlled and orderly manner, and not through a